What are off-limits policies and how do they affect you when you're going about an executive search for a new opportunity? The reality is that recruitment executive search contracts are extremely valuable. They cost companies millions of dollars per annum to execute finding top talent. Typically, they're charging somewhere between 21 and 30% of the person's first year's salary in the position. So these contracts can be very quickly, up into the $1 million territory. When a company is prepared to engage with a major search firm, a Korn Ferry, a Russell Reynolds, a Spencer Stewart, the reality is that you're talking $1 million contract, and so there'll be a number of clauses in that contract which will say something along the effect of, we're prepared to engage with you and you're going to find top talent for our business, but you're in exchange going to, contractually obligate not to proactively take talent out of our business. And so there is this concept of an off-limits policy, and I can assure you they exist in almost all major executive search contracts because companies get very tired of paying to attract very good talent and then finding out the executive search firm has taken the talent out of the business. So you need to be aware of this as an executive when you're going to market and you're starting to share your CV with executive search firms, recruitment firms, because unbeknownst to yourself, you might get caught up in an off-limits policy scenario. And we've had this happen twice recently in the last couple of weeks where a candidate was, in one circumstance, was encouraged to apply for the role by let's call it the CIO. The CIO approached a candidate in the market and said, look, we're doing a search with a particular executive search firm, but I'd like you to apply. And this person strongly encouraged the candidate to apply for the role. Then the shortlist was presented to the client and that candidate was not on the shortlist. And so there was a bit of a question mark over this scenario, and this CIO passed this feedback back to the candidate. Now, what has turned out is that the candidate was working for a company that engaged with that executive search firm and there was an off-limit policy in place. And so when the recruiter has gone to shortlist, they've looked at all the candidates and, sort of decided, well, we're not going to put this candidate on the shortlist. Now, whether that candidate was not the right person for the role, the jury is out because the company was strongly hoping to see this candidate on the shortlist. And this is what happens. Often the executive search firm will be very polite to you. They won't tell you the reasons why you've not been shortlisted, but the reason might be that there's an off-limit policy in place. Now, you just have to be really mature about this. There's no reason or method in trying to get upset about these things. These are commercial contracts that exist in the market, and in theory it would be great if the best candidate gets on the list, but you can understand why companies would have these engagements in place. The only time I see a off-limits policy overruled is when the candidate was already leaving the company. The candidate had almost left the company. Maybe the candidate had resigned, and then in which case the candidate is fair game. But it's a very, very challenging circumstance, and it might be the reason why when you're sending a CV out, there's a particular search firm that just doesn't really engage with you, doesn't put you into any recruitment processes. They are very pleasant and polite, but the reality is they just don't formally engage with you, and that might be the reason why.